On the next day, we who were Paul's companions departed and came to Caesarea and entered the house of Philip the evangelist, who was one of the 7, and stayed with him. Now this man had 4 virgin daughters who prophesied. And as we stayed many days, a certain prophet named Agabus came down from Judea. When he had come to us, he took Paul's belt, bound his own hands and feet, and said,
Thus says the Holy Spirit, so shall the Jews at Jerusalem bind the man who owns this belt, and deliver him into the hands of the Gentiles.
Now when we heard these things, both we and those from that place pleaded with him not to go up to Jerusalem.
What do you mean by weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus.
So when he would not be persuaded, we ceased.
The will of the Lord be done.
And after those days we passed.
Yeah, so Paul Paul had gained a reputation for himself outside of Jerusalem. Remember, he was the Pharisees of the Pharisees. He was sent on a mission to destroy the church, to bring whoever was teaching this new doctrine of Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, whoever was teaching this new doctrine, that they should be persecuted, put to death, jailed, beat, whatever, whatever was seemed to be fitting, right? So Paul had eventually came into the new covenant. All right, he was made blind, and he was given his sight to see. He was told to go preach the gospel to the children of Israel, to the Gentiles, and to the kings. All right, the Great Commission. Okay, and Paul had made a name for himself. Christianity, and I'm talking about the real Christianity, spread primarily because of Paul and Barnabas. All right. Yahweh Shah HaMashiach used Paul to teach this gospel to Corinth, to Galatia, to Antioch, which was the first Christian church outside of Jerusalem, which was those Christians were Gentiles. All right, they were called Christians because they weren't Israelites. All right, so those believers were first called Christians in Antioch. All right, so Paul had to go back to Jerusalem, all right, to deliver up an offering that he had received from around the old ancient world of believers due to what was happening in Jerusalem concerning the famine and for financial reasons. This is the reason why you get the book of James as well. All right, the book of James was a letter that was sent to it was a letter that was sent to the scattered abroad, because James wanted to address the Israelites that was scattered, that was doing good, that was wealthy, but meanwhile the people back in Jerusalem was hurting. All right, so, and that's where you get James the 5th chapter, where it talks about, the rich man and the hireling and the greediness of the people that was in the church. All right, and charities and things of that nature. So that a letter was addressed to the children of Israel. All right, that ones that was scattered. I just wanted to put that out there just for the history. So when it's important to go back to the first century, like brothers have been telling brothers, So when Paul was going to, they had put a hit out. The Pharisees, all right, the ones that was pushing Moses, the high chief priests, the chiefs, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and you had other sects as well. We mentioned the scribes. In fact, you had the Judaites. You had plenty of other sects that was off going. Even the the Sakari, and but we mentioned the main ones. They had put a hit out for Paul. At one point, they said they wasn't going to eat or until they had killed this man. All right, because he was a huge Matter of fact, the scripture says he was a plague unto them, right? So the brethren didn't want Paul to go back. They didn't want him to go to Jerusalem. To them, it was like a death wish. But Paul looked at it as, look, you know, this was what was told to us. This is what we signed up for. You know, it was an honor to die or to be bound or to be in jail, you know, for Yahweh Shai's sake, you know. So Paul totally embraced this. He totally embodied this. You know, he accepted this. It was game on. It was bring it on to Paul, right?
And he would not be persuaded, we ceased.
The will of the Lord.
Let me go back.
Now when we heard these things, both we and those from that place pleaded with him not to go up to Jerusalem.
What do you mean by weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus.
So Paul said, I'm ready to die for this. I'm ready to die for what it is that I stand on, what it is that I believe, all right? Okay?
So when he would not be persuaded, we ceased.
The will of the Lord be done.
Yeah, so eventually they couldn't tell him shit. They couldn't tell him nothing. Excuse my mouth, right? Sometimes you gotta put it like that, right? But they couldn't tell him nothing, right?
And after those days we packed and went up to Jerusalem. Also some of the disciples from Caesarea went with us, and brought with them a certain Nason of Cyprus, an early disciple.
So the Caesarea was a town that Herod had dedicated to the Caesar. All right, basically trying to get some brownie points, and he, you see, what Herod tried to do was try to Romanize his province, if you will, you know. So in Caesarea, you had a lot of Gentiles that was in Caesarea. You had a lot of garrisons that was in, it was a strong place for the Gentiles and for the Romans, all right, and for the Greeks. All right, for soldiers, it was kind of like, you know, you have military barracks in Japan, on Okinawa, in Germany, you know, where it's they tried to Americanize it because there's a lot of sailors over there, a lot of military men over there, right? You know, women was going over there to try to get them a Satirian type, so they turned these towns into places, all right, where people from other nations came. You have to go back to the first century. You have to. You have to look at the scriptures with a ancient biblical mind frame in order to understand what it is that was going on.
With whom we were to lodge. And when we had come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. On the following day, Paul went in with us to James, and all the elders were present. When he had greeted them, he told in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord.
You see, brother, how many myriads of Jews there are who have believed, and they are all zealots for the law, but they have been informed about you, that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, nor to walk according to the customs.
Yeah, so Paul, right, and as well as James, and as well as, you know, the other apostles, Moses wasn't telling men to receive, oh, you got to get circumcised in order to be saved, or he wasn't pushing the circumcision, all right, on the Jews, right? Now it's making a mention here that whom they're talking about in this particular time is the Jews that was scattered, right? So, but now he had made mention of how the ministry on which they did amongst the Gentiles, right? Which were the not Israelite foreigners, but the Gentiles of the other nations. And this is going to be made clear, all right? But in particular, what they were saying is like, look, it's been stated that you've been going amongst the Jews that are amongst the Gentiles and telling them, you know, to forsake Moses, right? So it's making a distinction between the two so that you know without a shadow of a doubt that the Gentiles that he's speaking of are not Israelites, because they're going to address both of them. All right. So it says he had greeted him and had told him in detail. This is Acts 21 and 19. told them in details those things which God has done amongst the Gentiles through his ministry, right? Period. All right. And they had heard it, they glorified the Lord. And they said unto him, you see, brother, how many myriads of the Jews there are who have believed, right? And are zealous for the law. So now he's addressing these Jews that believe, but they're zealous of the law, because you got to understand, the law was all we knew. We didn't know nothing else. We didn't know Yahweh Shai. We didn't know about any other way. All right. That's what our belief was in the law. We had faith in Yahweh Shai. Okay. So this was all we knew, right? It says, and they were zealous for the law, but they haven't been informed about you, that you teach all the Jews who are amongst the Gentiles to forsake Moses. You got to ask yourself a question, right? What the hell was Paul teaching? What was he teaching, right? Saying that ye ought not to circumcise their children, nor to walk in accordingly to the customs, right? So the circumcision was of the law of Moses, which is the circumcision of the flesh. So Paul wasn't teaching about a circumcision of the flesh. As a matter of fact, to the contrary, he was telling you that it was basically pointless to be circumcised in accordance to the flesh, because the circumcision the whole time was always a circumcision of the heart. It wasn't one of the flesh. So now we're leaving off from the carnality and we're entering into the spirituality, which a lot of men had a problem with and still to this day have a problem with. Because of their carnal minds, they can't fathom this. They don't understand this at all. Because they're carnal. And here's the thing. Even they understood at this time that this thing needs to be, it's baby steps. Right? It's baby steps. You got to deal with men in accordingly. You can't force feed men something too quick. You got to first give them milk and then honey. Then you could chew up the food. And then you could give them, chewed up baby food. And then you could give them, some meat and strong meats. As time progresses, you will go on. But what's keen is the more you grow in the spirit, the more the outer man, the more the inner man grows, the more the outer man dies off. You realize this thing ain't a thing of flesh or of outwardly or of old garments or walking around with fringes or you trying to keep the Sabbath because you realize you aren't given the ability to keep the Sabbath, and the ultimate Sabbath that he was talking about was entering into that rest. That the Passover, we're going to keep pushing this, man, that he is the Passover. He was the Passover. He's the lamb. You don't have to eat the lamb now. He is the lamb. You got to eat him. He is that rock. He is the atonement for sin. His blood was shed. That was the blood on the doorpost. So the superficial things or the carnal things or the ceremonial things, that wasn't what Yahweh delighted in. He delighted in his son. So him fulfilling the law was everything pointed to this man. From Moses being in a basket drawn out of water, it pointed to Yahweh Shai. The tree, the tree of life pointed to Yahweh Shai. That manna pointed to Yahweh Shai. The temple pointed to Yahweh Shai. Joshua bringing the children of Israel into the promised land pointed to Yahweh Shai, along with Caleb. Do your homework on who Caleb was. Do your homework on him. Him saving Rahab alive. Do your homework on that. So now, right, it says, but they have been informed about you that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that ye ought not to circumcise their children, nor walk in accordance to the customs. What then? The assembly must certainly meet, for they will hear that you have come. Therefore, do what we tell you. For we have 4 men who have taken a vow. Let's watch this.
What
Let's
then?
go to this.
The assembly must certainly meet, for they will hear that you have come. Therefore, do what we tell you. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be purified with them, and pay their expenses so that they may shave their heads, and that all may know that those things of which they were informed concerning you are nothing, but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law. But concerning the Gentiles who believe,
So as to the Jews, I became a Jew. So this is love. What Paul is doing is love. This is the love that he said when he had made mention of Romans the 14th chapter. I became all things to all men. Right? So to the Jews, I became a Jew. To the barbarians, I became a barbarian. So that we could come into the fullness. But you can't say to the Gentiles that's not going to keep this ordinance, right? Or was not raised in this ordinance, or wasn't circumcised on the 8th day, that he can't believe. You can't take that man's faith from him. Nor can they do the same thing to them, as long as they're not omitting the most important things of what it is that this day persists of. And this is during this time. Now we living in a time in which you have men that still hold on to these things, right? But my issue is, or Paul's issue would have been, is not that you guys hold on to these things, but you guys totally negate the spirituality aspect of it, which is wild. So in other words, to take hold of the Passover, right, which is symbolic of the Last Supper, right, which is symbolic of receiving Yahushua, but to say that we haven't entered into the new covenant is wild. So you're holding the Passover in vain. Yahushua HaMashiach's death has become a non-affecting to you. So this is to be rebuked. This is what we're admonishing, warning you from. Right? The spirit that you're coming in. But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we had written and decided that they should observe no such thing. These Gentiles were not Israelite foreigners. They were not Israelite foreigners. They were natural Gentiles. And the James and Peter, you know, when they had held that council, when you go to Acts the 15th chapter, all right, he said, look, we told them, as long as they, you know, don't stay away from idols and from blood and things strangled and weird stuff like that, and fornication, and they believe and they show the fruits of the spirit, they love Yahushua HaMashiach with all their heart, and they love their brother, they good to go. We place no other burden on you. These men in these camps won't push that. They won't push that. And not only do they not push that, they put other rules and commandments of men that's fucking grievous to men. Do 3 shows a day. So if it's not in your spirit to do this show, you're basically offering up this sacrifice just because. That is exactly what the Old Testament was about. That is exactly what the letter of the law is about. Sometimes you gotta let that idea marinate in your brain, and it comes out natural, that sacrifice, not a forced sacrifice. That is exactly why Cain killed Abel. Because he offered, the scriptures say he didn't offer up sacrifice. Cain did offer up sacrifice. It just wasn't warranted. It wasn't worthy. It wasn't worth anything. Because it wasn't sincere. It was forced. So the day before camp or the day of camp, you see brothers, you know, let me get a quick showing. Just because some man told me that I had to do 3 a day, it's not sincere.
believe. We have written and decided that they should observe no such thing. except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, from blood, from things strangled, and from sexual immorality.
So now you got to pay attention, right? Now you have to pay attention because you cannot, right? I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this, man. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say this, right? See, the gospel is preaching an event that took place concerning the life, the death, and the resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach, right? See, we cannot when you cleanse your temple out and you allow the Holy Ghost to enter into you, the Holy Spirit is going to teach you. That's why the scriptures say, it shall be said, teach no man. We can show you things. We can present things to you, right? But like the brothers been saying, if you don't have no love, no mercy inside of you, these words become obsolete to you. You don't. They're gonna go over your head. And this is a story that's being told. You have to listen to the story that's being told. You can't just pick inserts out of these scriptures and try to make up something, just to make up a fucking doctrine. That's not what this is about. These are stories. These are the acts of the apostles. You have to, if you can't see that the Heavenly Father is going to have mercy on a remnant of some Gentiles, people that are from the other nation, the Spirit of the Lord is not nowhere in you. The Spirit of the Lord is nowhere. You don't even understand what it is that you're reading. You don't know. You don't understand what the death of Yahushua was about. So you need to go back and read Acts from 1 all the way through. Don't even stop. Don't stop. Don't go to another precept. You need to go back to, and then if that don't work, you need to go back and read it again. And read it again 3 times. Because if you claim to be in the new covenant, right, and you can't see these things, the Lord may be knocking at the door. He may be knocking, trying to get in, but he's not inside you if you can't see all the nuances of Yahushua HaMashiach. All the nuances. The nuances is love. It's peace. It's mercy. It's going to all the nations. It's hearkening to the voice of Yahushua when he said, now I'm going to need you. I got power. It's belief that he has power in heaven, on earth, and underneath the ground. You got to believe that he does. You got to believe that he has the ability to cleanse something that he once deemed filthy. So when he said, Peter, eat the pig, eat these animals, and take in these people, you gotta believe that he has the power. Some of you men don't believe that Yahushua has the power to cleanse these things, to cleanse these animals, to cleanse these people, because you're stuck in the old covenant. And being in the old covenant, reading Hebrews and saying out of your mouth, oh, we in the new covenant. Right? The new covenant is something that gotta be in you. You can't just say it out of your mouth. The new covenant is something that's, you understand the nuances. And all those old things, you understand that, look, those things were only small, minute things to lead to bigger spiritual things. So he has the power to take a woman that was deemed to be a dog and cleanse her through faith.
Then Paul took the men, and the next day, having been purified with them, entered the temple to announce the expiration of the days of purification, at which time an offering should be made for each one of them. Now when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews from Asia, seeing him in the temple, stirred up the whole...
So now Paul is being a Jew. Let me get this. I became all things to all men. First Corinthians chapter 9 verse 19. First Corinthians chapter 9 verse 19. Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone, to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew, to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law. Come on! Come on! That's in parentheses. So as to win those under the law. To those having the law, I became like one not having the law. Slocky, let me read that again. So as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law. Though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Yahweh Shai's law. So as to win those not having the law, to the weak I became weak, to win the weak. I became all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I might share in its blessings. Come on, man. There's a certain level of understanding that's a higher learning that you have to understand what was going on. And you cannot be closed-minded when you're reading the scriptures. You cannot shut up somebody's faith. You cannot shut the door on somebody predicated based off of their race. That's crazy. Predicated based off their flesh. That's crazy. If you see Paul doing something, he's telling you that he's doing this because he is trying to show people that are underneath the law that the whole time the law pointed to Yahweh Shai. The sacrifices was about Yahweh Shai. To the ones that wasn't underneath the law, he played the game. To the Jews, to the Gentiles, to whoever it was. However he was going to kick the gospel to you, he was going to do it. He became all things to all men. This is heavy, man.
Whole crowd, and laid hands on him, crying out,
So
which
now-
time an offering should be made for each one of them.
This is heavy.
Now when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews from Asia, seeing him in the temple, stirred up the whole crowd, and laid hands on him, crying out,
Men of Israel, help! This is the man who teaches all men everywhere against the people, the law, and this place.
See? And that's what you got guys to this day. These guys to this day are saying, look, these guys that's pushing the new covenant are teaching against the law and against this place. That's what they're doing. They're persecuting us with their mouths. They don't have the physical ability to do so, but you better believe if they had the ability to do so, they would. They would. They would persecute you. They're persecuting us. Just like they did Paul.
Men of Israel, help! This is the man who teaches all men everywhere against the people, the law, and this place. And furthermore, he also brought Greeks into the temple and has defiled this holy place.
Look, he said he also brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place. They weren't talking about no fucking Israelite foreigners. They wasn't talking about no Israelite. You ain't gonna see that word Israelite foreigners in the scriptures. That's some made up shit. When the scriptures is talking about Greeks, they know who they. The definition for Greek or Hellen is everyone that is not a Jew. So when Paul says, I came to preach to the gospel to the Greeks and to the Jews, he's letting you know that he's coming to preach to everyone. To everyone. And they said, look, this man brought Greeks into the temple. So he brought Gentiles into the temple. Watch this.
for they had previously seen Trophimus the Ephesian with him in the city.
Yeah, Trophimus the Ephesian. Who you think the book of Ephesians was to? In fact, hold on, man. Wait. Let me read this scripture real quick. Let me read this. Let me read the book of Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 3 verse 1. For this call I, Paul, a prisoner of Yahushua Mashiach, for you Gentiles, if ye had heard of the disposition of grace, which grace of God, which was given me to you word, how about by revelation he made known unto me the mystery, as I wrote in a free word. What is the mystery? The mystery isn't that Paul is going to go teach some Israelites that was gone astray. That wasn't the mystery. That ain't no mystery. That's not the mystery. Hold on, man. It says, how about revelation? It says, whereabout when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Yahushua, which in other ages was not made known unto men, unto the sons of men, as it is now being revealed unto his holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit, that the Gentiles shall be fellow heirs in the same body and partakers of his promise in Yahushua by the gospel. An heir is an Israelite. An Israelite is the heir. To be a fellow heir or to be a joint heir, these are legal terms. These are legal binding terms. In the law, the firstborn receives the land, and then the rest of the money gets divvied to the family. So when you're an heir, right? When you are heir, that's what you get. But to be a fellow heir is to take part of something concerning your brother. They show you this. The Lord showed you this when Jacob and Esau was born. That he was going to do something contrary to what was inside the law. Because Esau was the firstborn, he was supposed to get the land. But Esau rejected. He rejected. Esau rejected. Esau rejected. He sold his birthright. He rejected the blessing. He took the money. He didn't take the land. So when Joseph went and presented his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father Jacob to receive the blessing, when Jacob had laid hold, Joseph had presented who? Manasseh, which was the firstborn. But Jacob put his hand on who? Ephraim. And then Jacob said, no, this is my first, but no. I'm going to give him a blessing too. But this isn't how I'm going to do this. The story of Abraham having a son with Sarah, which was of the promise, okay, which was of the will of the Heavenly Father. Haggai was something that was of men. That was something of the flesh. That was something of their will. That wasn't something of the Heavenly Father's will. That was something due to a lack of faith. So it was only an analogy of these people that don't have faith. They don't have faith. They don't believe in Yahushua HaMashiach. They don't believe in the Most High. They're self-willed. They're self-willed. So they're going to persecute the bondwoman, the free woman. What are we free from? We're free from the law of Moses because we're divorced from Moses, right? The law have dominion over a man just as so long as he live, right? But when that man dies, a woman that's married to a man, they're married forever. But when that man dies, that woman has the freedom to marry another husband. Moses, we were married to Moses underneath that first covenant. Moses died, so now we are free to marry another, which is Yahushua HaMashiach. So when it said the law have dominion over you as long as you liveth, we're not alive concerning that old covenant. We're dead to that old covenant. So when he died, we died. And what was resurrected of us was new men, which is new creatures, which is i.e. this Holy Spirit that dwells in us in Yahushua. So now it's not us that's living, it's Yahushua that's living in us. It's he that's speaking to us. It was the foreshadowing of the tabernacle dwelling with men the whole time. It's here. It's happening. But men are blocking you. They're omitting you. They're stopping you from receiving this spirit. This is of Satan. Satan don't want you to receive this information. He wants to keep you in the flesh. This is why Saul, the tale of two kings. This is why Saul was handsome on the outside, broad shoulders, right? Saul was handsome on the outside, broad shoulders. He looked good, right? Let me get this real quick. This is 1 Samuel chapter 9 verse 2. It says, Kish had a son named Saul, as handsome a young man and as could be found anywhere in Israel, and was head taller than anybody else, right? Let me get this. So he was handsome, broad shoulders. This scripture said there was nobody more handsome than Israel than Saul. Saul, the king Saul. But on the inside, he wasn't right. But David, on the outside, he was scrawny, small, ruddy. But on the inside, he was right. These are the two examples that you have. You can't tell the difference between Old Covenant Peter and New Covenant Peter. There's a big difference between the two. Big difference between the two. You can't see from when the Holy Spirit wasn't on these men to when it was on these men. There's a big difference between Saul and Paul. There's a reason why Abraham changed his name. Sarah changed her name. Even when you go into Jacob changing his name. It was all leading to the new covenant. Everything was geared toward the new covenant. That's what the clothes was about. Joshua, the dirty garments and the clean garments. The new song that we sing. Hold on. The new song. What is the new song? Is the new covenant, man. Go to the book of Revelation real quick. This new covenant is something different. It ain't like the old. Revelation chapter 5 verse 9. Right? Revelation chapter 5 verse 9. Revelation chapter 5 verse 9. Right? And they sung a new song, right? And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by the blood out of every kindred, tongue, and people and nation. What? Out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. Y'all are not going to stop this. Y'all are not going to stop these Greeks from worshiping Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. From a goddamn Ethiopian. Even if he's a eunuch, the scriptures say. You're not going to stop them from worshiping Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. All your works is in vain, is of Satan. That's why when Peter, Old Covenant Peter said, look, you not these things ain't about to be so. The Lord said, hey, get behind me, Satan. Because you're not finna stop what is about to... You can't stop the truth. So Old Covenant Peter was self-willed. That's why he denied Yahweh Shai 3 times. He was of the flesh. Even though he said that he wasn't. That's why he pulled out a sword and tried to get carnal. Yahweh Shai hadn't been glorified yet, so he hadn't sent the Holy Spirit on these men. That's why they were maneuvering in the way that they was maneuvering. Oh, she's a dog. Oh, don't go in the way of the Gentile. Come on, you gotta come to the peak. You gotta come to the peak so that you can be able to teach people. This gotta start within Israel first. There's a higher level of learning and understanding here. We gotta be spiritual. We can't be carnally minded. Don't say go not in the way of the Gentiles, right? Did you not read Acts? Now he's saying they're going away. Why? Why? Because he now has this power. He broke down the wall of petition. That's why when he died, the temple split in two. The veil rent it. Earthquakes happened. Graves, people came out of the graves. Because he preached the gospel to the spirits that was in hell. So they came up out the graves and they walked around and they gave testimony to what it was that they was doing. Job said it. I know what my eyes shall see my Redeemer. Job has a testimony. Look it up. Go to a Vatican library or somebody that's been to a Vatican library and read about the testimony that was written in the 1st century. Herod has a record. The Judgment Hall. They were excellent record keepers. Pontius Pilate has a record. They have a record of these things. Claudius, Nero. These are real events that happen in real time. This was something that happened. This is the gospel. This is the good news. You can't stop men from entering. You don't even know yourself if you're going to enter into the kingdom. Men who stop men from entering into the kingdoms and they themselves won't go into the kingdom. This is a real thing.
But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in.
You shouldn't be. You ain't no way in hell somebody that is of God is in the spirit of condemnation. Is in the spirit of trying to decide who's gonna by what standard are you measuring? The brown paper bag test, can you Dougie what your lineage goes back to? That's why Paul said don't get caught up in those endless genealogies. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 4. Neither give heed to fables and endless genealogy, which ministers questions rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do. Where's your forefathers from, man? Fuck all that. Teach them the gospel. If it stick, it stick. If it don't, keep it pushing. That's what the apostles were doing in the 1st century. But let's watch this, man. Watch this. You get fired up, man. You get fired up. But watch how this plays out. Watch how this plays out.
Whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. And all the city was disturbed, and the people ran together, seized Paul, and dragged him out of the temple. And immediately the doors were shut. Now as they were seeking to kill him, news came to the commander of the garrison that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. He immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down to them. And when they saw...
You see that? It said all of Jerusalem. This wasn't no little fucking thing. So your little camps that you got that's like, you know what I'm saying? This was colossal. This was governors involved. Imagine something happens where the CIA is involved. FBI is involved. You know? Presidents, letters is being written to presidents. This isn't what you guys... This isn't no little One West. This is bigger than this, man. It's way bigger than that.
Saw the commander and the soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. Then the commander came near and took him, and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains. And he asked who he was and what he had done. And some among the multitude cried one thing, and some another. So when he could not ascertain the truth because of the tumult, he commanded him to be taken into the barracks. When he reached the stairs, he had to be carried by the soldiers because of the violence of the mob. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying out. Then, as Paul was about to be led into the barracks, he said to the commander,
May I speak to you?
Can you speak Greek? Are you not the Egyptian who some time ago stirred up a rebellion and led the 4,000 assassins out into the wilderness?
So that lets you know that Paul was a so-called black man, too. Alright? And does it matter for contentious? Does it matter what his color is? Probably doesn't. But guess what? It's the truth. You got people that believe that Paul was a white boy.
I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I implore you, permit me to speak to the people.
So when he had given him permission, Paul stood on the stairs and motioned with his hand to the people. And when there was a great silence, he spoke to them in the Hebrew language.
So now this is when it gets good, right? This is when it gets good.
Brethren and fathers, hear my defense before you now.
And when they heard that he spoke to them in the Hebrew language, they kept all the more silent.
I am indeed a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, taught according to the strictness of our father's law, and was zealous toward God as you all are today. I persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also the high priest bears me witness.
Yeah, so Paul is going on, needless to say, right? Like, I done this. I was you guys. I was in the old covenant. I was persecuting in accordance to the law. I was zealous for the law. I was zealous for Moses. Right? I was of the flesh. I didn't know how to walk in the spirit. I didn't have faith in Yahweh Shai. I did things according to the letter of the law. Right? Yeah, I was underneath that Levitical priesthood. Right?
And all the council of the elders, from whom I also received letters to the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring in chains even those who were there to Jerusalem to be punished. Now it happened as I journeyed and came near Damascus at about noon, suddenly a great light from heaven shone around me, and I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? So I answered, Who are you, Lord? And he said to me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. And those who were with me indeed saw the light and were afraid, but they did not hear the voice of him who spoke to me. So I said, What shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, Arise and go into Damascus, and there you will be told all things which are appointed for you to do. And since I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of those who were with me, I came into Damascus. Then a certain Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good testimony with all the Jews who dwelt there, came to me, and he stood and said to me, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that same hour, I looked up at him. Then he said, The God of our fathers has chosen you, that you should know his will and see the just one, and hear the voice of his mouth. For you will be his witness to all men of what you have seen and heard. And now, why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized, and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord. Now it happened, when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple, that I was in a trance and saw him saying to me, Make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, for they will not receive your testimony concerning me. So I said, Lord, they know that in every synagogue I imprison and beat those who believe on you. And when the blood of your martyr Stephen was shed, I was also standing by consenting to his death and guarding the clothes of those who were killing him. And he said to me, Depart, for I will send you far from here to the Gentiles.
And they listened to him until this word, And then they raised their voices.
Away with such a fellow from the earth, for he is not fit to live.
Then, as they cried out and tore
Immediately, as soon as he had said, I'm gonna send you far away from here unto the Gentiles, they got in an uproar. They got in an uproar and started getting crazy. Watch.
their clothes and threw dust into the air, the commander ordered him to be brought into the barracks and said that he should be examined under scourging, so that he might know why they shouted so against him. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said to the centurion who stood by,
Is it lawful for you to scourge a man who is a Roman and uncondemned?
When the centurion heard that, he went and told the commander.
Take care what you do, for this man is a Roman.
Then the commander came and said to him,
Tell me, are you a Roman?
Yes,
With a large sum I obtained this citizenship.
but I was born a citizen.
Then immediately those who were about to examine him withdrew from him. And the commander was also afraid after he found out that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. The next day, because he wanted to know for certain why he was accused by the Jews, he released him from his bonds, and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them.
So here you have this persecution that was established, that was led by the Jews, predicated based off of two things. One, they think, was he taught against the customs and the laws of Moses. For two, he had said he had accused them of bringing Greeks and teaching the Gentiles. All right. So the persecution in the first century of the disciples was predicated based off of teaching the new covenant, all right, and the teaching of the Gentiles. That's it. Esau's not finna come down on y'all because y'all are teaching what y'all are teaching, right? It's this first, y'all are with Satan. Satan is with that. Satan don't care that you holding men to the flesh. Satan's concerned about you teaching men concerning the new covenant. All right. So I'm gonna close it there. Hope and pray that was edifying. To the next time I say shalom.